next time we put this into potatoes, we'll make sure to vapam it so the verticillium isn't as bad. And maybe they won't die early. Welcome out to another beautiful day. We are here at the cellar to start things off. We have a full even flow bin and 2 trucks ready to unload. We loaded a couple of these last night. We kept a couple full because we knew that the semis from Driscoll's were coming this morning. So they got here at 7 o'clock in the morning and we needed to have trucks ready to unload so we could start filling trucks at 7 a.m. And yeah, it's just after 7. We have a semi right there. So we're loading him up. And I think this is actually the second semi. We've already loaded one. And everything's running fairly smooth so far. Things are a little bit drier. We had a ton of rain. Still some mud around, but even just a little bit of drying overnight, things are a little bit drier. So it looks like we could possibly speed things up just a little bit. Run a few more potatoes across here. One problem is they're going right off of here, right onto that piler. So normally we have a bunch of guys picking dirt clods, and on this field lots of rotten potatoes off the back, all the conveyors that go into the cellar. But since it's going right in, I'm guessing that's why we're running it slower. So all the pickers up here on the table can get as much of the rot and rocks and dirt clods and vines out as possible. So we're gonna keep rolling here and see if we can get all these semis loaded. They want 12 semi loads this morning. So we've loaded, we're on the second one. So we still have 11 semis to load this morning. It'll probably take us a few hours. So we've been out here bright and early. It is morning. The camera makes it look a lot lighter outside than it really is, but if you look that way, the sun actually has not come up yet. There you go. The sun hasn't quite come up over the hills yet. It's 7 o'clock in the morning. We've been digging for a little while. We are starting early in case it gets hot in the evenings. And we're also loading some of Driscoll's trucks. So good morning, bright and early. Right now I'm waiting for a truck because they had to get everything going and unloading this morning to load the semis. So we're back at it again today. Today's going to be about, I was out here and Lloyd was out here at 5:30. We started loading trucks at 7, so we'll call it a 7 o'clock digging day until probably close to 10 o'clock tonight, and then do it all over again. So go eat some potatoes so that what we're doing actually pays us any money. Also, the other thing I wanted to note, this field, and Taryn will probably show a little bit, when we got on this field, it lacked a little bit of water, and so the potatoes are a little bit smaller. Now we're eliminating all the little ones. We're putting them in one of our cellars so that all the ones that you guys get in the stores and at restaurants are not the little guys, you know, that are, I don't know, size of a golf ball up onto, you know, a little bit bigger. But we need to figure out, what are we going to do with these eliminator potatoes? What should we do with these eliminator? So the eliminator potatoes are perfectly fine. They're perfectly good. They're just small, too small for them to sell in the stores and bag up for baking or fries. They usually work good for process. So when they go in to the plants like we had been selling that grind them up into potato flake, they're good for that. However, when they go into those plants for potato flake, the little teeny ones, I think it's 1 3/4 and smaller, they dock you for those, because after they go through a peeler, there's almost nothing left. Then they go to cook, so they don't really pay you for those. So we need to figure out as a community, what do we do with all of our little eliminator potatoes? Now, to give you an idea of how many we're going to have, we are filling a cellar that normally holds 70,000 100-pound sacks.
70,000 sacks. So what is that? 7 million pounds of potatoes? But we don't know how full we'll get it. It could be, you know, 50,000 sacks. It could be 30, 40,000 sacks. We don't know. We figure if we tried to eliminate 10%, you know, of our crop, which should be about 45 to 50,000 sacks is 10%, because we should have roughly 450 to 500,000 sacks. What are we going to do with them? You know, right now the market for the flake is kind of low. Nobody's buying a lot of eliminators because we had some big surplus crops from 23 and 24, and so there's a lot of stored flake that they are going to be working back into some of these flake sheds. So like when you go to the grocery store, I know there's a company called Idaho, and you probably saw the flavored, you know, mashed potato flakes in the store, or you go to Costco or Sam's and you get the boxes of potato flake that you can you know, mix a little bit in and make you some mashed potatoes. But what do we do with these little guys? They'd make great little potatoes, you know, like you'll see the little reds or the yellows that, you know, you can almost steam in a bag. Well, these are no different. They're really good potatoes. They're just little. So we need to figure out, as a community, go down and comment below what you guys think we should do with all these eliminator potatoes so that we don't have a waste. Now, one other option we had was we have the ability with manure spreader trucks to load those little potatoes out, maybe, well, kind of squish them, load them out and haul them and spread them back on the fields and use them as fertilizer. Now, obviously nobody wants to do that because you could get anywhere from $3 to $5 a sack. Now think about that. If someone came to me and said, hey, I'll give you $3 or $4 for 100 pounds of these little potatoes, that's pretty cheap. I'm pretty sure every one of you would pay $3 or $4 for a big 100-pound sack, so long as we knew what to use them for. You know, if you could, I mean, a lot of people boil them, so then they can, you know, freeze them, bottle them. You could dehydrate them. There's a lot you could do with them, but let's figure that out so we don't have to spread them on the crop, on the field again for fertilizer, and we can utilize basically what they're not going to pay us for, so we're eliminating out. But they're still delicious. My wife loves to, you know, we have an Instapot. We like to get a lot of those little ones, you know, wash them up good, throw them in the Instapot. You don't have to even cut them. Just put them in there with some meat or stew or whatever, or just do mashed potatoes with them. They work really well for that. So anyway, hopefully we'll have a good day today. We're still waiting for trucks here in the harvester, but look at we should have some good videos coming about the famous Idaho potato harvest. So go ahead and like and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Well, we had to stop. We have a problem with our rollers mudding up. They got so muddy that this just stopped. So anybody have any ideas on how to keep your rollers from mudding up? Obviously digging in dirt that isn't super wet would be the best idea, but we don't really have that option right now. Okay, well, I did a little bit of tool design. This is a tool I made earlier in the year when we were washing rotten potatoes. This hook is to go inside this belt and pull vines out if they get built up around the shaft. So I just modified the other end, put a little bend on it. Now I can stick it up in here and go in between the rollers, put some pressure on it, and then just drag it across, and it cleans all the mud off. So much better option. It's nice when you can design your own tools because nobody makes one to clean these rollers off. Now, while we're loading semis, we're in the process of getting all the conveyors out of the way. This cellar, we could probably fit one more truckload in it, but we're not going to. So we have to move the piler and the expandable into this cellar, and then get all these conveyors hooked up. Hopefully we can do that while they're loading semis and we won't have any downtime. All right, we're now, oh, hold on. Well, we're in the middle of going and the hub just broke. The hub snapped off on the wheel. So we're done. Well, the hub broke. Just broke right off. The one weak point of all this stuff is the hubs are weak. So now I have to run to Blackfoot and go get one. We're gonna be stopped for probably over an hour. Awesome. Well, got the parts. Now we're just putting it back together. Had to put the new hub on, put the wheel back on. Hopefully. We just need to move over there. Just had to brake before we got there. All right, well, we're finally moving. Got through that mud and now we're headed into the cellar. Okay, well, we're almost in here. We ran out of cord, so we're hooking another cord together to get it longer, and then we'll have to come in and then back out this way to get it more centered in the cellar. Okay, we got everything in position in here, but we still have some conveyors we got to get into position out there. So it is always a struggle, and it makes it even more of a struggle when it's muddy. The mud is just wreaking havoc on everything. All this mud we're having to contend with. That's the mud that we couldn't get the piler through. We had to pull it with the tractor. Mud everywhere. Okay, it's running. We had to take this out, flip it around because the cords wouldn't reach. Just a whole bunch of stuff. Then what we need is like 2 more cords. If we had 2 more cords, it would have worked much better. I'm not sure why it just stopped, but at least everything's going the right way, because that's half the battle, is you plug everything in and then it's going the wrong direction. And I'm not an electrician, and even the Sputnik electricians couldn't explain to us when we unplug something, unplug it back in, and nothing has changed, and belts are going the wrong way. Why? I don't know. But we are rolling now, and it's almost lunchtime. So we have not done much this morning. But now that we're in a fresh cellar, we should be able to dig pretty well non-stop for a while. I'm gonna lower this. This has a hydraulic ram right there. I can lower this down. I think I'm gonna lower it a little bit, get these little fingers touching. Be a little bit easier on the spuds. Let's just do that right now. So right here. Put that down just a skosh. That should be good. Tighten this up. There. Now those fingers are touching the belt, so they're not dropping. Okay, we are just getting things adjusted here. Getting all this set so they're not dropping very far. We've only been running for a minute. We've already got a nice little pile of potatoes. Sweating now. This morning it was so cold my ears hurt. Now I'm sweating. Got my hoodie on. So I'm gonna go out and probably start chisel plowing now that we got this all sorted out. But looks like we may need to speed things up. The even flow bin out there, you can't even see it, it's so bright. The even flow bin right there is clear full. Well, looks like we're starting to mud up a little bit. It's still dropping a lot of dirt through, but they are mudding up. So I think I'm gonna grab my little tool I made, clean some of the mud off. I was on my way out to the chisel plow, Christopher called me and said that they had switched to this field right by our cellars, and these conveyors were all kind of out in the field, so they were all in the way, and they're right where the conveyors are. So I am in the process of moving all these conveyors out of the way, and then I think I'll move our gooseneck trailer and our header trailer for the combine out behind the cellars, because this cellar back here is the next one we're going to be moving into. So all of our equipment will be right here. So this is going to have to move anyway. So I'm going to move it right now. But I have one more conveyor. That conveyor over there, I think I'm going to leave it because it's out of the field. But this one's like back in the field. So I got to move this one and then these two trailers. And then I can go out in the chisel plow. So much stuff that needs to be done. And there's only a few of us to get it all done. And I'm the floater, so I'm gonna do all this stuff. Well, it looks like I got it out of the way just in time. They're rolling through right here where they were all sitting. So Christopher said that last field was 70 loads, which averaged 400 sacks to the acre, which is not bad. We weren't expecting that much out of it. And then the first field we did, that we completely finished the first field, that one went 500 sacks. So far, we've done parts of a couple fields. We did part of one field, then it rained, and then we did the sand part of another field. So those ones, we're not sure what the yield was because we haven't finished the whole field. But on the two fields we finished, one averaged 400 sacks, one averaged 500 sacks. So we're shooting for 450 sacks. That's kind of our goal. So looks like we are getting close to that. This field though is not going to be good. They're going to be little. The yield's going to be low. We're going to have a ton of eliminators. But well, it is what it is. We're just opening up a new round here. I want to see what the potatoes look like, because we did test digs on all these fields, but you never know. You do a test dig in one spot in a 100-acre field, it could be a lot different when it actually comes down to it. So I just want to see what this looks like. There's lots of wild oats and weeds in this field. And it doesn't look like there's very many potatoes. And what ones are here are pretty small. Yeah, like here's probably the biggest one. Just not a lot here. And everywhere there's weeds and wild oats, which is kind of scattered throughout the whole field, like this is all wild oats. Everywhere that there's weeds and wild oats, you're gonna have smaller potatoes and less yield. So yeah, you get what you get and you don't throw a fit. Next time we put this into potatoes, we'll make sure to vapam it so the verticillium isn't as bad, and maybe they won't die early. There's Grandpa in his pickup coming out to see if they're looking good or not. He's always coming out and checking stuff. He will be 91 this fall. I don't know if I'm ever going to get out to the chisel plow. I was just being too observant, I guess. This field, we were planning on digging. We've changed the dig order because of the rain. We were planning on digging this, so I watered it around, and it was good. And I had, now that we may be digging this later, I was like, okay, I got to go fill the pond back up because this one pulls out of a pond from a ditch. So I went and filled the pond up, and I was driving past my pivot, and I saw my pivot. I was like, okay. And I don't know if you can tell from the road, that tire just looked a little bit not the same angle as this one. So I was like, okay, I'll come out here and look at it. I was like, yeah, this one's kind of leaning this way, which is normal, and that one's more straight up and down. I was like, what the heck's going on? I come over here, it's still attached, but I don't know if you can tell, but those holes aren't really existent anymore. It's cracked the rim, broke here. It's shot. That rim is toast. I guess being too observant means I have to have more work for myself. So now I gotta go get a pivot tire and a jack and all the stuff loaded up in this, or probably our Ranger because this doesn't have the bed capacity. And I got to change a pivot tire because if I do have to water this around, or even when we dig this, they're going to have to move this pivot, and that's not going to work very well. I imagine not many more times around and that thing would just fall off. So I'm surprised that it made it all the way around one whole rev. I don't know, but I got to change it. It's supposed to look like this. Nice, perfect. It's not supposed to be all wallered out and broken. This is the second one we've had this year that's done that. And all the lug nuts are still on there, still tight. So, I don't know. I mean, the tire still looks decent, but oh, pivots, lots of problems. When they work really well. When they don't, they're just problems. I changed my mind though. It's kind of hot right now. So since we're not digging anything in here, we're not digging this field or doing anything with it tomorrow. So I'm just gonna come out in the morning and change it in the morning when it's nice and cool. So I don't get boiled out here in the sun. Granted, it's only like 75, maybe 80 degrees, but I'd rather do it when it's 45 degrees. I decided to stop by the cellar for a minute to see how these potatoes look. These are all the eliminators. So there are a lot of them. A lot more than the last field. These are all potatoes that are under 6 ounces. And now we'll go look and see what the ones that are going into the cellar look like. So these are the ones going into the cellar. For the most part, they actually look pretty good. There are definitely a lot, like this one's probably barely on the border of 6 inches or 6 ounces. Some of these, like that one, is definitely an eliminator, but the eliminator doesn't get everything. It gets most of them. So there's going to be some that get eliminated at the plant, but for the most part, a lot of these are good packing size. Anything over about 5-6 ounces, they'll pack it. Now that we do not want. But these look pretty good. Like the shape and everything looks good. I know the yields are down. I think that's a dirt clod. Yep, that is. I know the yields are down, but the potatoes look nice at least. Should get hopefully get a good price out of them. All right, well, we are finally rolling on the chisel plow at like 3:30 in the afternoon. So I'll get a few hours in today at least. So we will see how much of this field we get done. It's a pretty big field. This field connects to the next field, and there's about 3 fields right over here I have to do. So it's gonna take me a few days. The problem is there's wheel lines out here. With the pivot, I can just kind of go around the pivot and swing it over. With the wheel line, I'm working at an angle, and I don't know how to work at an angle with the wheel line. I'll try and figure it out when I get close. The next wheel line's over here along the edge of the field, so that one won't be an issue, but the next field has a bunch of wheel lines in it all over the place, and I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I'll figure it out. I had to get out. I just moved the pivot so I could do where the pivot was sitting. So I gotta go shut the pivot off now. And then I have something to show you guys because there's been a lot of questions asked. But I gotta turn the pivot off first. I think that did it. So I've been getting the question a lot because we've had some pivot tracks that were really deep and the pivots get stuck. And we've been getting a lot of questions like, well, why don't you just fill that track with sand or gravel or concrete the pivot track and then you won't have tracks anymore? I mean, it should be fairly self-explanatory that I can't, because we don't do no-till because we grow potatoes. This field's going to be in potatoes next year. This was a wheat field this year. And if we put concrete right here, I wouldn't be able to work it up. I'd have to lift this up over everyone, which would make it a mess, or I'd have to work it in a circle, which you can't do that. I have to be able to work it up. And if there was concrete or gravel or something, if there was gravel or sand right here, when I came through with this, it would move all of that gravel over here. So there's really nothing I can put in there that would make it work. Now, one person did have a suggestion, which might work. If you got like a straw chopper that like cuts up a straw bale and blows it into like bed down cows, if you got one of those, put a bale in and just blew straw, like a big pile of straw, into the track like during the year, that might make it solid. It would definitely give it more than just mud or whatever. It would do something, and then that would break down and we could work it up. So that actually might work. But for the most part, we just leave them because this thing right now is going 12 inches deep, and that's how deep we have to rip it to get the potatoes in the ground. So we used to actually rip it about 18 inches deep with a ripper, but we found that this Lemkin chisel plow goes as deep as we need. We don't really need to go any deeper. So, but yeah, that is why we can't really put anything in the pivot tracks to make them not as deep. Now these ones aren't very deep because this was in wheat, and for whatever reason the wheat kind of holds it together better, and they don't tend to get as deep. So yeah, there you go. Okay, well, I didn't quite finish this field. I have this pivot that's right here, and it is the slowest pivot on the planet, and I am trying to get it out of the way so I can go where it's sitting. But there's something wrong with the pack timer that's on the panel, and it just keeps like glitching out. It won't stay at 100%. I don't know what's wrong with it. So I'm gonna see if I can set a park on it and just let it run overnight, and hopefully it's out of the way tomorrow. Well, I was gonna head to the cellar and see how far they got on the cellar, but when I drove by, they had all the lights off. Because I guess they broke a shaft on the crossover, and they just barely got it fixed. It's almost 10 o'clock. We usually quit at 10, but they just barely got the shaft fixed, so they're just gonna load up all the trucks and then go park them in the cellar to unload in the morning, because we're getting some more semis. So they're just finishing up. They got a load. I think there's 5 more trucks that I can see, and then they'll be done for the day. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, trying to show you a little bit of harvest and what I'm doing every day, because what I do every day changes day to day. But if you enjoyed it, go down below, hit subscribe. It helps us out. Hit that like button. I love you. I'm Big T. I'll see you in the next one.